Twilight stared upwards through unseeing eyes. Her lavender coat was matted with snot and sweat and tears. Her eyes, puffy and red from an eternity of crying, itched badly. She tried her best to ignore it. She couldn't do anything else. She was trapped, impotent and helpless. She couldn't even lift a hoof to rub the reminders of her shame away. What a useless pony she was, unable to even escape from a terrible dream. What had Celestia ever seen in her? She could feel bruises beneath the restraints keeping her stationary. They had developed slowly once she had stopped thrashing against them. The gradual increase in pain as they formed was the only clue she had that time was moving forward. The featureless room was eternal, unchanging. How long had she been trapped in the cream and moss-colored hell? Minutes felt like years. She sniffled. Even sleep eluded her. The tumultuous storm of thoughts racing through her mind sabotaged any attempt to create a moment's peace. As soon as her panic had begun to recede, she had been assaulted by a contradictory cloud of theories and possibilities, each as likely as the last. Nightmare or curse, unseen captors or a creation of her own mind. Like a dog chasing its tail, her thoughts circled endlessly without resolution, the same arguments and the same claims coming up time and again. Twilight didn't care, it was a distraction. The more detached and logical her thoughts were, the less likely they were to be swallowed up again by the storm of emotions raging just beneath the surface of her mind. Ever since she had opened her eyes, her emotions had been erratic and hard to control. There was a haze over her thoughts, a cold mist that drained the impetus from her mind as though moving underwater. A loud click echoed in the small room, the sudden retort enough to break through Twilight's morose shell. Stiffly she lifted her head to peer around the cell. Nothing had changed. Had she imagined a sound? There was movement outside the door. There was a rush of emotion when she finally managed to bring the window into focus. It was another pony. Relief and apprehension flooded Twilight's system. It could be her captor, or it could be her saber, but at least it was someone else, someone real. She tensed as the door shifted slightly. The muffled jingle of metal was swallowed by a final loud clack as the door was unlocked. With a soft thigh, the iron portal swung open to reveal a large stallion, a set of keys clutched in his teeth. Twilight gulped. He was big. His white jacket a tight fit over his strong beard. The dark fur of his coat did nothing to conceal his imposing musculature. He met her expression of fear with one of mild boredom before returning his keys to his bed. She wasn't going to be rescued. "Good morning, Twilight Sparkle," a unicorn mare in a lab coat declared cheerfully as she slipped past the bigger pony. A broad smile plastered on her face. She adjusted the nurse's head placed atop her pink mane as she strode up to Twilight, the silent stallion dutifully following in her wake. "I know we've been getting you up a bit earlier than usual, but the doctor wanted to have another little chat today to see how the new treatment is working. He's pretty optimistic after the last few days, and that's some really good news." The nurse gasped softly when she drew close enough to notice Twilight's disheveled appearance. "Oh, Twilight, you look like you have been crying. Are you okay? Did some pony have a bad nightmare?" she asked softly. Her horn flashed with a sudden aura, producing a washcloth from one of her pockets. With maternal care, she set about gently wiping away the crust from Twilight's face, her hoof gently caressing Twilight's mane. The display of warmth and familiarity was an unexpected contradiction to everything Twilight had suffered through that morning. She tried to work some moisture into her mouth as the nurse cleaned around her eyes. Who are you?" Twilight managed to whisper, her voice like dry leaves rubbing together. The white mare's face slipped a little further. "You don't remember me?" she asked curiously, resuming her cleaning. Twilight's tongue was sandpaper, her voice a desiccated whisper. She shook her head instead. The doctor said there might be difficulty recalling things temporarily," the mare eventually said as she put the cloth back and removed the stethoscope from around her neck. "Don't worry about it though, Twilight. You'll remember soon enough, I'm sure of it. The doctor didn't want me answering too many questions though, so just hold still while I check you out. Once I'm done, we'll get you fed and out of bed." She smiled at her own rhyme as she pulled the sheets back, revealing the padded restraints and the green patient gown Twilight had known she was wearing. The nurse set to work with practiced ease, the levitating stethoscope eyes even through the green cloth of her gown. "So, I'm in a hospital?" Twilight's voice cracked as she asked the question. The nurse glanced up from taking Twilight's blood pressure. "You really don't remember anything at all?" Twilight shook her head again. "Well then, I guess I really could tell you our names at least. The doctor won't mind. I'm Nurse Ratchet, and this is Sirius, one of the orderlies here." She cut off Twilight's next question with a raised hoof. Now, I know you have plenty of other questions, hon, but you just have to ask the doctor anything else. He said there might be some side effects, and he thought it'd be best he'd be there to answer everything himself. Now be a good girl for me and stay still while we get you out of those restraints." "Please," Twilight said, relief coloring a hoarse whisper. Without a command, the other two ponies set to work as one. Freedom brought sensation back to her formerly bound limbs, making each bruise twice as painful. Twilight smiled anyway, unable to think of anything as pleasant as being released from her bindings. It was the first relief from her fears all morning. Nurse Ratchet helped Twilight up into a seated position as Celia stepped out of the room for a moment. Twilight swung her legs over the edge of the cot, taking a moment to stretch out her legs. They were stiff, like a machine that had gone without oil for too long. The orderly returned as Twilight massaged her forearms, holding a plastic tray in his mouth. Resting atop it was a bowl of porridge in what was colloquially referred to as a sippy cup. Twilight stared at the cup. It was the kind meant for foolish and messy children, a tight cap preventing any unexpected spills. She should have been insulted, but it was filled with water. Snatching it off the tray, Twilight wrapped cracked lips around the nozzle and started sucking down the refreshing liquid. The water a healing balm for a painfully dry mouth. Rarity would have given her an earful for making such rude and unladylike noises, not to mention doing so while drinking from something meant for foils. Twilight continued to gulp down mouthfuls without a thought for etiquette, as if afraid it might be taken away from her. It tasted divine. Celia slid the tray into her lap as Twilight finished off the rest of the water. With regret, Twilight put the empty cup from her lips. Thanks," she said apologetically as she placed it back on the tray. "I was really thirsty." "Feeling better now, Twilight?" Yes, ma'am. I do feel a bit better, but I'm still so confused. I don't know where I am or how I got here or anything, really." Nurse Ratchet nodded sagely. "The doctor said something like this could happen. It's perfectly normal. You've just started out on a new treatment and the first few days are always the roughest. Don't worry though, we're going to go see Dr. Rose right after breakfast so he can do his examination and answer your questions. Just be sure to eat all of your oats. Your medication can be a bit hard on an empty stomach, and you wouldn't want an upset tummy, now would you?" Twilight glanced down at her breakfast, a small bowl of grayish porridge and a single plastic spoon. Twilight watched the spoon dumbly as nothing happened. Something ticked at the back of her mind as she tried again to lift the spoon. She blinked and then gasped, her forelegs leaping to her horn. There was heavy canvas strapped around her horn like a sheath, small buckles keeping it firmly attached to the bony protrusion. Her fears that it had been hiding a damaged or crippled horn, which were entirely justified considering the shock of having awoken in a strange hospital, were banished after a quick examination. Despite the relief that her inability to use magic wasn't permanent, Twilight still frowned when she was unable to discern just how to remove it. "What is this around my horn, and how do I take it off?" she asked, shifting her gaze from the tip of her horn to the medical ponies. They were staring back at her intently, and Nurse Ratchet wasn't smiling anymore. Silas had imposed himself between the two mares and was watching Twilight intently, the previous apathy in his eyes replaced with the promise of violence. The stallion's entire body was tense like a runner waiting for a starting pistol. The room grew even smaller. "Twilight, please be a dear and stop touching that." It wasn't a request. The nurse was trying to keep some of her earlier pleasantness in her voice, but there was nothing of the concerned caretaker in her tone. Her eyes were eyes. She shifted her posture noticeably, a quiet spring prepared to act. Twilight swallowed and jerked her hoofs away. "I'm sorry." She apologized profusely, her mouth suddenly dry again. I didn't know." The two other ponies visibly relaxed once her hoofs had returned to her lap, the tension slowly draining from the room. Celias took a step back, but continued to watch her carefully. It was an improvement. At least she didn't feel like she was staring at a bull about to charge. Twilight left a fresh sweat on her brow, not willing to risk wiping it away. Regaining the use of magic would have to wait. Nurse Ratchet favored Twilight with a thin but genuine smile. I understand, Twilight. You're confused and you don't know what's going on. You just didn't know any better, is all. No one's angry at you, Twilight, so just finish your breakfast and we can go see the doctor. He'll be able to tell you everything you need to know, alright, sugar? The older mare spoke like she had caught a fool reaching for a hot stove. Twilight just meekly smiled back, her heart still racing. The change in their demeanor had been as unexpected as it had been sudden, and their reactions dumbfounded her. She felt like she was struggling to solve a puzzle with most of the pieces missing. Nothing fit. She needed more answers to try and make sense of it all, but it was obvious Ratchet wasn't willing to answer any questions, so Twilight ignored the patronizing tone and kept quiet. Besides, she was pretty hungry. Twilight cautiously spooned a mouthful of the porridge into her mouth. It tasted exactly like it looked. Bland, lumpy, and lukewarm. Like the simple two-tone paint on the walls, the drab food was a clear sign of a government institution where the bottom line was the most important factor in any budget. It brought to mind memories of humorless school meals prepared in huge batches by equally humorless lunch meals, all unconcerned with customary culinary values, like flavor and texture when they had a few hundred ungrateful little fools to feed. It wouldn't be showing up on Sugar Cube's Corner's menu anytime soon, but it was edible, and before long Twilight found herself staring down into an empty bowl. "That's a good girl," Nurse Ratchet said, as Silas took the tray up with his mouth. "Now how about we stand you up? Don't worry, darling, I support you. There we go. Nice and easy." Following her directions, Twilight eased herself off the edge of the bed and planted each hoof with deliberate care, leaning heavily against the other mare. Her sore legs wobbled slightly as her weight shifted from the nurse to her own legs, but she avoided an awkward fall. The tires didn't look very soft. Twilight smiled weakly. "So, now what? Just stay close to me, dearie." Obediently, Twilight followed Nurse Ratchet, feeling a weight lift from her mind as she passed through the open metal door. She wasn't caged anymore. Just beyond the door, another orderly stood beside a polished metal cart. Sayas handed him the empty tray before taking up position behind the two mares. Twilight swung her head from side to side as the two ponies escorted her through the winding corridors. The hallway was painted in the now familiar two-tone paint scheme, creamy white above a soft moss green. Other doors like the one she had just escaped past were evenly spaced along the walls, where there other ponies trapped inside them as well. Nurse Ratchet drew further ahead as Twilight glanced through the windows as she passed them, but the dark rooms revealed nothing. The three traveled without speaking, the only noise the clip-clop of their hoofs on the white tires. Ahead of them was another orderly, a tangerine mare, stationed at the hallway's only exit. After a cursory glance at Ratchet's identification, she pressed a button on the wall and the double doors unlocked with a soft click. Not just an orderly then, but a guard. Twilight eyed the mare's truncheon nervously as she followed the nurse through the doors.